In today's video, I will show how you can build the most powerful AI agent for your browser with n8n. And how can you be sure that I'm not overhyping this? Well, because recently I actually had to build a project for one of my clients where we had to make the AI agent log into a particular platform, make various of different clicks, fill out the form with the data that we passed on, and then eventually submit that form. And the agent had to do this from 20 to 200 times per day. So believe me when I say that I tested a bunch of different things that can work on a browser with n8n, and the thing that I'm going to show you today, in my opinion, so far has been the best thing. So without further ado, let's jump onto my computer screen. And right away, you can see the workflow that we're going to be building today, step by step. It's actually very simple and very straightforward. There are 3 HTTP request nodes that make all of the calls and that enable the AI agent to complete its tasks on your browser, log into platforms, get the data, scrape the data, complete the actions, whatever the task is. And for this, we're actually going to be using the browser use AI agent. And if you're familiar with browser use, then you know that you can actually build this on your local computer. So for example, if we go into their GitHub, you can actually see that browser use is open source. That means that you can set this up on your local machine, add an API key, and run it without any additional cloud service costs. So if you're okay with running it on your local machine, it's a great choice and it's one of the best on the market out of all of that I tested. But for those that actually want to hook it up on n8n on their cloud service, they don't want to install virtual environments, libraries, that sort of stuff. They don't want to touch code at all. I'm going to show you how you can enable this AI agent on n8n environment. So actually this workflow is going to be in the description down below where you can download it. And for all of my newsletter subscribers, I'm send out these workflows every week for free. So each week you will get new workflow completely for free. So subscribe to my newsletter if you want to get that. But now let's just start building it and let's see how it works. Or maybe actually let's just demo it and see how it works in action. So I'm actually, to see how it works, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the browseruse.com and I'm going to hit on cloud. That way we're going to enter the cloud platform where we can see the recording of the browser use agent. And here you actually can see the pricing. Right now I'm using the pay as you go because this is right now my test environment. So I don't need, to pay $30 for monthly credits. And what I'm going to do to see how it works live, basically, I'm going to run this flow. So just to see what the task is for the agent, so we can open this up and we can see like a simple prompt that I added here. And what it says, go to the kiwi.com, which is a website for buying flights in different areas. Then delete any other city in the from field and to field. After that, pick flights from any New York airport to any airport in LA. Departure date should be on June 5th and return date should be on June 14th. Then return the flight prices during these dates and return flight length, departure times, airports, and durations. So this is the task that we're asking AI agent to perform. When I'm going to hit test workflow, then we can actually go into the cloud environment on browser use. And over here, a session should appear. So just give it a moment and there it is. If I click on the session, actually what's going to happen is that we're going to see a live action. I don't know how to say this, but we're going to see this happening live. So, actually right now, probably an interesting thing is that I actually tested before filming this video and I see that the browser actually saved the data before. So we already have New York, Los Angeles, and the dates. So this is not gonna be as impressive as I want it to be, but let's just leave it be and see how it works. So technically right now it should see that it has a New York, and it should keep the New York in there, or it should delete the New York and re-add it, because that was my task and that was the instruction. So right now, while it's running, you can actually see like how it's trying to understand the layout of the website and which actions it needs to perform. But for example, you already seen that when it clicked on New York, it realized that New York is already pre-selected. For Los Angeles, okay, so it actually understood that we already have the appropriate dates for everything, and it just clicked search. So yeah, we didn't see it pick from the departure and return, but believe me when I say that previous to this, I actually tried with this same thing, and it selected everything on its own and returned the result. But now let's see what it says here. So navigate directly to the search results page using provided URL format to ensure search results load from the correct parameters. Okay, so now the next step, I guess, if it already confirmed that all of the dates and fields are filled out correctly, then it should extract all of the flight dates. And it can actually buy the tickets if I would want to, but I don't, because I don't want to spend money. But it could actually go into here, select the option, add it to your cart, log into the platform, and make the purchase if you already insert the credit card details. But now let's just give a couple moments for it to return the data and the output. And actually, here we go. Right away, we can see the output being returned with saying the task is complete. Here is the extracted flight details for round trips from New York Airport to Los Angeles, departing June 5th and returning June 14th. These are the prices. This is the outbound flight, the duration, inbound flight, airports, total duration, and price. So as you can see, like it not can only insert data and complete actions, but it can also be used for scraping data. For example, if there are certain websites that needs a login, it can actually log in and scrape the data. So we've seen the end result, how it performed. Unfortunately, you didn't see it pick the dates, but whatever. I think we can live with that. And here is the ended result on our n8n. So for example, if I click on this edit node, you'll see that I have the exact same output. And you might say that, okay, but like, what do I do with this output? It's like completely unstructured, where fortunately, browser use also allows you to define JSON structure to extract data in a structured matter, in a structured way, and also allows you to have a predefined output that you want. So enough of talking, and let's start building this from scratch. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go into personal, and I'm gonna create workflow. The first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna trigger it manually, because that's what I'm doing right now. And the next thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually go into the documentation, because that's how we will know how to set it up. So let's go into API documentation, and over here we will have all of the API endpoints. So if you want to find all of those endpoints, go to docs.browser-use.com. and you're going to be presented with this. Over here, you can also see all of the supported LLMs for the cloud version, and also the costs per step. So for example, you can use Gemini 2.0 Flash, which is the cheapest, or 4.1 Mini. But the accuracy is not going to be as good, or you can use such models as 4.1 or 4.0. So yeah, these are the models supported. So now what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to go into run task, because this is going to be I'm going to be presented with the documentation for the first node that we need to set up. And lucky for us, we actually have curl option here. What I'm going to do, I'm going to click copy the curl, I'm going to go back, and over here, I'm going to just type in HTTP request. I just lost my mouse. And over here, I'm going to click on import curl. I'm going to paste it and press import. And it actually pre-configures the whole node exactly as we need. So for example, we have the method post, we have the right URL, then we actually have the header where we would replace the token with our API key. And then we also have the place where we can insert our task. Then we can add secrets. So for example, if this needs to log in into a website, you can add a password and a username. So if we go back to the docs, yeah, so for example, secrets, you expand this and you can see that you can supply these as like with keys. So for example, you would add password, yeah, so you would add like inside these brackets, you would add a password, then this colon, and then the password itself, and then comma, username, colon, and the username itself. And that's how it would work. Then we have, let's say, allow domain. So if you want to have particular guardrails of what it can access, you can add that. So in this case, I'm going to delete the secrets. I'm going to delete the allow domains. Then for the save browser data, you can actually enable it or disable it with typing in true or false. And why this is good, because for example, you can actually log in through browser use onto, for example, LinkedIn. And whenever you then run it over and over again, it's already going to be logged in into LinkedIn. So then, you know, it's a lot more likely that you're not going to experience any issues. Then the structured output JSON, the format that you want to return the output, LLM model, if to use ad block or not, use proxy or not. I actually don't know what this does, so let's delete it. Highlight elements, true. So for example, we can actually add false because that's kind of annoying for me, but it's very good for troubleshooting. Ad block, let's again disable this. And actually we can disable this. So now all we're left with is that actually we only need to insert a task. So I'm going to go back to my previous workflow and I'm just going to copy the prompt. So I'm going to copy it and go back here and just going to type in like so. We have the task actually ready. Now, what I can do is actually I can also, let's rename this as run task. And what I can do is actually start running it. Oh, and again, I didn't insert API key, but if you want to insert API key, go into the browser use, API keys, create an API key, generate it, copy it, go back here and replace this. But in my case, what I'm going to do, I'm already have it predefined as a header auth. So I'm going to go in here, I'm going to select browser use. And I'm going to test this step. And I'm actually going to pin the data. Now, because when we go back, it should be triggered and it should start running over here. Okay, we can see that it's running. It has been activated and that allows us to continue the build. So for this, I'm going to add a second HTTP request. Then I'm going to go back into their documentation. And I'm going to select get task status. For this, again, I'm going to copy the curl. I'm going to go back to n8n, import curl, paste it in here, press import. Again, deselect the headers because I have predefined header auth, browser use. And in here, in the URL, I actually need to click on expression and replace the task ID with that ID from run task node. Now, if I click test step, okay, that's good. We got an error saying response body is not valid JSON, change response format to text. So let's go to add option, response, over here, text, test step, boom. We have the status of the task as running. So I'm going to pin this data again, just for while we're building this. And I'm going to add an if node. In the if node, I'm going to take the status, drag it like so. And I'm going to select string and is not equal to running. That means whenever it's running, it's going to go to a false branch. And if it's false, that means that task still hasn't finished and we want to wait until we still try to get the status again. And whenever it finishes and it goes to true, that is when we can actually go in and grab the outputted data. So this is more like a mechanism that checks on the task and see, hey, did you finish? No. Okay, I'm gonna come back like after 5 seconds and I'm gonna ask the same question again. So for that, I'm gonna add wait node, and by default, it's gonna have 5 seconds, so I'm gonna leave that. And also, I'm gonna add an edit node. Why? Because I actually wanna pass. So I'm gonna click on this to run the wait node, and in the edit node, I actually want to pass the ID of a task. So over here, I'm just gonna name it ID, and I'm gonna drag the ID from the task like so. That means we're gonna have the ID. And over here, I'm just gonna loop it back to the HTTP request, which we can rename is get task status, like so. And if I, for example, unpin this data and I test the workflow, and if it's still running here, yeah, it is. So that means it will keep looping until we finally finish the task and we get the extracted data. So now I'm gonna pause this video for a moment until it finishes, and then we're gonna continue building this through once we already have the task status finished. All right, so we are back and we can see that it finished running. If I go into my workflow, I can see that in the if node, we have the data as finished. Therefore, it was returned through the true path. In here, then what we can do is actually get the task. So for this, again, I'm gonna type in HTTP. We're gonna set up the HTTP request based on the docs. So if you go and then select get task, then copy again the curl, go back into n8n, import the curl like so. We have it. Then I'm gonna again pre-select my predefined auth like so. And here, the only thing we need to do is to replace the task ID. So I'm gonna delete this variable, and from the task ID, I'm just gonna slide this in. Okay, and it can't determine the item, which is interesting. Let me check how I did it in my previous build. Yep, I actually did it the same way. So that means it's completely fine. What we need to do is just rename this and say get task. During the first run, it's probably gonna fail if I do so. Oh no, it actually output it. So you can see, actually, sorry, my neighbors are drilling, so I hope you can hear that, but if you can, I'm gonna try to wrap this up very quickly. But now we have the output here of saying like what are the prices and so on. So for example, if I would want to have only the output, I could type in edit output, then for example, type in the output, and let's say output. Click test step, and it gives the output with the flight prices like so. And now if we, for example, want to make use of this data or do something with it, then we could, for example, add another LLM node and say that structure this data in this format. Or if we actually want to structure the data, what we can do is go into the browser, use docs, which is run task, add in the structured output JSON. So for example, I could go back in the task, I could expand this, add a space, insert it, and then in between these quotes, I could define the JSON structure that I need. So for that, the simplest way, for example, could be, let's say I got the output, I would copy this thing, then paste it into ChatGPT and would say, hey, give me structured output based on this output in a JSON format and escape the output, because it's going to have these quotes, and it has to escape those quotes. So basically, if you give that prompt, then it's going to generate you a structured output that you can insert into run task. And then every time you run it, you're going to have the same format of output. And then, you can do whatever you want with this. So again, if you want to get this workflow, there's a link down in the description down below where you can download it. For my newsletter subscribers, they're going to receive this next week completely for free. And if you enjoy watching this video, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next one.